talked about this before. When an owner gets older, they want to win. And they may change their worldview on football. Jerry Jones always been very emotional. He loves his players. One of my complaints has been for 2 years, they overpay. They pay good players great money. So yesterday, they released Jaylon Smith. Now, they're on the hook for his contract this year, but not on the hook for his contract $9 million next year. This is very important. First of all, this is why the NFL is great. You don't get trapped with players. They draft Micah Parsons. He's a sensational talent. You have Van Der Esch, Neal from Atlanta. You don't need Jaylon Smith. Jaylon gets paid. No sympathy there. He gets paid. Good guy. Great story. The Cowboys are now out of the contract as of next year. In baseball, the Brooklyn Nets, the Angels with Albert Pujols, the Brooklyn Nets with Kyrie. One of the things I always feel bad for fans is when you get trapped into these bad contracts, especially in basketball, it's a salary cap league, and you're just trapped. Right now, you start looking at certain baseball teams, and you're like, man, you got 9 years to pay a guy, and he's already hit his peak. In football, this is why you can name the really, really bad contracts in the NFL on one hand. There's almost none of them. You get rid of Brady today, be no cap hit, seriously, in a year. And that's the first part of it. This is good for the league. And Jaylon Smith, good kid, great story. Jerry fell in love with him, 30-minute press conference, but he was no longer needed. They had a log jam at corner or at linebacker. But this is another reason I like this, because I have been complaining about the Cowboys for several years. The one thing that guarantees you will not win a Super Bowl in any salary cap league is paying great money to good players. I'm all for paying LeBron and Brady and Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, everything the market offers. But do it infrequently and do it with great discretion. But this move is very interesting because it's coupled with a couple other things. So now this morning, by getting rid of this contract, who do the Cowboys pay big money for? Their quarterback, you should. A star receiver, you should. A pass rusher, DeMarcus Lawrence, you should. And their offensive line. Well, you want to protect your asset with Dak. Now, are they overpaying for Zeke? Yes, but because they pay Tony Pollard nothing, the backup, the unit as a whole is reasonable. But here's the other thing. By hitting a home run with Micah Parsons in the draft and hitting a home run last year with Trayvon Diggs at corner, now the Cowboys are not overpaying for any of their linebackers. In fact, their linebacker unit this morning is almost a bargain. Their secondary, Byron Jones, gone a couple of years. They've got a star. It's almost a bargain. Not paying any of their safeties. Dallas this morning is overpaying a running back. But if you look in the NFL at the positions you should pay, quarterback, O-line, star receiver, pass rusher. So the combination of moving off Jaylon Smith, he gets paid. No pity party, great kid, he gets paid. The Cowboys get rid of a bad contract, and now because they've hit 2 home runs in the draft, both their secondary and linebacker units, oh my, it's almost like they're getting a deal. That's incredibly important to win Super Bowls. That you draft a Mahomes, and you, for 3 years, don't pay him anything. You draft a Josh Allen and get a break for 3 years. That's how Goff gets to a Super Bowl. That's how the Cleveland Browns, because they haven't paid Baker yet, have this incredible O-line and receiving core and Myles Garrett, and they paid for a secondary. So this is a really big day for the Cowboys. They hit on 2 draft picks. They move off Jaylon Smith. Now their books look like championship books. Okay, they're overpaying for a running back. You have a right to overpay for somebody. I mean, Sammy Watkins, good receiver. I swear to God, every team he's been on, he's been overpaid. He's been overpaid by 4 teams. But he's fast. He's good in the playoffs. You have a right to overpay for somebody. But all of a sudden this morning, I look at the Cowboys and their structure, and I'm like, all right, that's the way to do it. You're getting a 2 or 3 of your stars you're not paying anything to. You're paying all the right positions and units. By the way, they also hit a home run with CeeDee Lamb. So now you got CeeDee Lamb, Trayvon Diggs, Micah Parsons, way outperforming their contracts. That's how you win Super Bowls. You can't pay great money to good players and have no value. You've got to find some labor on the market that you're winning. in a salary cap sport. Now they're winning with 3 different players, and they moved a bad contract. I think it's a very good day for the Cowboys. The books are much cleaner today. They look like a championship accounting set. That's the way the great ones do it. They're getting value on a lot of people so they can overpay for their quarterback or their left tackle. That's very exciting for them. The Herd, by the way, brought to you by Jersey Mike Subs. Be a sub above. So this next story is, I always had this theory. Smart people don't have a right to get conveniently dumb, right? Remember the Deflategate? I was always very suspicious of that. Bill Belichick has his fingers on the pulse of the whole franchise. Suddenly, when it came to footballs, no idea what's going on here. I don't even check the footballs. I was like, yeah. Suddenly, he was conveniently absent-minded. I was always a little, I don't know what happened with Deflategate. I mean, it's not a Brady thing, really. He's still great. But Aaron Rodgers is really smart. Really smart. He's one of those guys that, he's manipulative and he can see around corners. He's a very smart guy. So in the last couple of weeks, he's made comments. They played the Steelers. Before they played the Steelers, after they played the Steelers, he talked about Mike Tomlin. And let's not go crazy here, but Aaron is too smart to conveniently suddenly become very casual with his love fest with Pittsburgh. He was on the Pat McAfee show, our friend Pat McAfee. Here's what he said.
I'm a big Mike Tomlin fan. I have been for a long time. I like the way that he speaks about his team. I like the way that he goes about his business. I like his confidence. I've heard nothing but good things from guys that have played there. I like Mike Tomlin. Look, I'm just speaking the truth. Ask me a question about Mike Tomlin. I'm going to tell him how I feel about Mike Tomlin. If you want to take that and run with it and say I'm, angling for some sort of next team or something, I'm not. I'm just answering the question about my respect for Mike and what he's accomplished in the league.
By the way, Pat was not drinking apple juice there. So here's my point. Aaron knows what he's doing. So the Pittsburgh Steelers currently have 3 losses. Look at their schedule. I count at least 9 more losses. This is going to be a bad team. Yeah, I'm sorry, but they're not going to beat Seattle. They're not going to beat Cleveland, at the Chargers, Baltimore, at Kansas City. They're not beating Cleveland this year. They're not beating Cleveland. Get over it. They're not beating Baltimore. Not happening. I'm not sure they're beating Cincinnati. I may give you that one. But this is very interesting. So combine that with the fact that, Baltimore appears to have a star quarterback who can throw. Joe Burrow's really good and has star receivers and only getting better. Cleveland's got a really good head coach and a great O-line and a really sharp GM and a franchise quarterback they mostly love. Pittsburgh is staring at a hole for years. Don't forget, the Packers disappeared for a decade in the 80s before Favre. They disappeared. New England disappeared for years pre-Brady. The Giants have been doing a pretty good job the last 6 years of disappearing. This is not college football. You fire the coach, you get a new guy in, you got a big brand, you recruit a bunch of players. You don't get the quarterback right, you can disappear. So the division, the quarterbacks, you have at least 2 stars, and Baker probably remains in Cleveland. So you're going to, if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers, with that defense and Mike Tomlin, you're going to just roll the dice on a 50% hit rate first-round college quarterback. Really? You do remember how many quarterbacks you moved through between Bradshaw and Big Ben? About 12. This franchise has a history. They had Bradshaw, they had a bunch of guys, and then they hit Big Ben. And that's the only time they won Super Bowls. The Rooney family remembers very well that big gap between Bradshaw and Big Ben. How do you solve it? You don't go college. You go get Aaron Rodgers, who, unlike a college quarterback, doesn't have a 50% hit rate. He's got a 100% hit rate. What wins in sports in 2021? Aggressive. We've seen it with the Dodgers. We've seen it with the Lakers. We see it with everybody. Is Aaron's going to casually just throw it out there? Aaron Rodgers is way too smart to just throw it out there. He wants people to know, I like Tomlin. And by the way, players do. Mike's great. But if you think he's just throwing it out there, he's not throwing it out there with a lot of other coaches. He's not throwing it out there with, Pete Carroll. They got a quarterback. They're not throwing it out there with Kansas City. I love Andy Reid. Well, they got a quarterback. He's throwing it out there with the one franchise with a great defense, great wide receiver talent, great ownership group, great GM, great scouting, who just